Keep going. I can start it whenever.
Hi, our country is in a serious economic situation, as is most of the world. To fix the situation, it is most important to first understand what caused the situation and what happened and why. The banks built a house of cards, but the wind that knocked down the house of cards was fuel, the price of oil. Oil prices did not go up because of India and China, and it wasn't OPEC. And I will show you simple proof of this. In 2008, oil dropped from 147 down to 32 in a short period of time. That proved to anybody who understood anything about the markets that it wasn't India and China. India and China did not close. They did not go out of business. To drop that far, that quick, had to be artificially propped up. You may remember seeing on the news several years ago when oil was first going up at around $70, $75, the head of OPEC saying, "It's not us, we didn't do this. It must be the traders, it must be somebody, it's not us." He was right, it wasn't OPEC. Though they're enjoying the increase in income, they did not cause it. Oil prices went up because of manipulators, not because of speculators. The speculators are being herded like sheep. In year 2000, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and British Petroleum formed the Intercontinental Commodities Exchange, ICE, as it's known on the street. In 2001, they bought a small London-based petroleum exchange, moved it to Atlanta, and the Bush administration granted them foreign exchange status. As a foreign exchange, there is zero American oversight. There is no British oversight because they left Britain. There is no French, there is no German oversight. There's no Lithuanian or Mongolian oversight. There is no oversight. They're strictly flying by their own rules. Before Katrina, you saw gasoline prices at the pump going up and down in the 50-cent range. A good portion of that was Morgan playing on the ICE. Morgan Stanley owns tankers, they own refineries, they have more in storage than the National Strategic Reserves, they own home heating oil distribution companies, they own the exchange, and they make bets on the exchange. Do you see any conflict of interest there? Before Katrina, they were stealing nickels. Lots of nickels, but nickels. When Katrina occurred and gasoline here in the New York area went from 175 to 350 overnight, leveled off for a few months until the refineries came back online, and then started to come down. It got down about 250, 2.25, and then took off again. Well, that taking off was Morgan Stanley playing. Initially, what they did was they would put out bogus forecasts, such as, we see oil going to $75 by the end of the summer. And all the speculators would come in and push it to 75. We see it going to 125 by the end of the year. We see it going to 200 by summertime. It got to 147 and it broke the back of the economy. How did it break the back of the economy? I live in a nothing special high ranch, a very typical suburban house, heated with oil. I used to be warm for $150 a month worth of oil. Then I was cold for $650 a month. My electric bill went from 100, 125 to 3.25 a month. In a typical two-car household, you have at least $150 a month per car, if not more, figuring one car drives more than another. You walk into a store and everything was more expensive because it was trucked in. Forget what ethanol, the very valiant but failed experiment with ethanol, did to food prices because of grain prices going so high. All our meats and anything that contained grain went up significantly in price. So if you add it up, the average household had a $1,500 a month after-tax increase in spending to their budget. That's $2,500 a month before taxes. The banks the subprime market did not cause the mortgage collapse. Oil did. Subprime market was actually the first victims. Yes, the banks built a house of cards, but the wind that knocked it down was fuel. At $1,500 a month is $2,500 a month before taxes. $2,500 a month is enough to finance a $300,000 to $350,000 mortgage. So anybody looking to buy a house on a budget, whether they were looking at a $200,000 house, a $500,000 house, or a $1 million house, just lost $350,000 worth of purchase power. What a coincidence. That's when home sales came to a standstill, and they haven't picked up since. And most people who lost $1,500 a month of after-tax dollars started to control their spending and watch their spending. The first thing they did was they stopped going to restaurants. I was in a friend's restaurant when someone came in to service the dishwasher. He told me he was getting 3 calls a week from restaurants to come pick up their dishwasher, or they were going because they were going out of business. And other discretionary spending started drying up. When the spending dries up, the retailer lays off people, he's not doing business. The wholesaler goes out of business, the manufacturer goes out of business. Everybody, all the cards start falling. Well, the snowballs were coming down the mountain. It was all because of oil. Okay, the subprime market, people earning $70, $80, $100, $150,000 in annual household income couldn't absorb what equated to a $30,000 cut in pay right after they bought a house. Actually, when mortgages started to fail and caused the mortgage crisis, it was all because of the oil prices, which even people who could afford their mortgage and had a job, all of a sudden their jobs were disappearing if they could absorb that difference in salary. Okay, jobs were disappearing because people didn't have money to spend. Okay, understand how the mortgage business works. Okay. A mortgage, when the bank gives you a mortgage, the mortgage is sold off. Your bank sells it off. Somebody collects them, puts them into big bundles, and sells them off to investment groups. The traditional home mortgage failure rate is 0.1%. All of a sudden, mortgages were failing at 10 and 12%. When you take out a mortgage, you generally pay a 1/4 point mortgage insurance. That pays for the 0.1% plus all the fees and profits to everybody along the line. What happens is the investment banks buy the mortgages, buy the bundles of mortgages. The bundles generally pay 6.5% to 7% interest going in. They get 40-to-1 leverage on that. 40-to-1 leverage means that they put down $1 billion and they buy $40 billion worth. And they finance it with margin financing, similar to when you buy a stock on margin. And the margin financing was at 2.5%, 2 5/8, 2 3/4 in that range. So basically, they were seeing a 4-point spread. Well, a 4-point spread on $40 billion is $1.6 billion every year in profit for the $1 billion they put down once, plus upside as adjustables kick in. When they started to fail at a 10 and 12% rate, the first thing that happens is they get a call from the margin lender saying, I need the other $39 billion. And he says, we don't have that sitting in a drawer. It's all out on the street working. Well, he needs the $39 billion. So let's go call the insurance companies, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, AIG. And they say, well, we've got 3, 4, 5 times our normal reserves sitting around in cash. They don't necessarily have 100 times the normal reserves. So they were about to go out, the investment banks were about to go out, and the whole financial system